It is the final word daily, the Women's Ashes Daily, the second T20 international from Canberra, from Manuka Oval. Jeff Lemon and Isabel Westbury coming to you. The show's brought to you by Morris Blackburn, the number one plaintiff law firm in Australia. And you, Izzy, are going to tell me about a T20 match in the space of 30 seconds.
Overcast conditions, England's best chance at a few points in this Women's Ashes, but Beth Mooney, who averages 100 at the Manuka Oval, got off to a flyer. 44-31. Then there was a bit of a breakthrough. England got 3 for 9 at one point. Perry was out, Litchfield was out, Sutherland was out. But my God, Tally McGrath Grace Harris, went for it. They've got 7. Grace Harris, 6th wicket partnership, 71 between them, absolutely smelted it. They got 48 runs off the last 3 overs, 185 on the board. It's all lost from there, we thought, with England again. But then there was a good little partnership. Danny White-Hodge, who was out for a first ball duck in the previous match, 52 from 40. Really got action. Heather Knight, unbeaten on 43 at the end, threw her bat down because they came off for the rain. The rain came down twice. And the first time England were ahead on DLS, the second time they were behind. The second time was one that counted. And, Keldamage, that was the end of it for England. And once again, they lost another Ashes match.
They did. Not many to go.
Yeah.
One T20 and the Test match to go. I'm going to forgive you blowing past the 30 seconds because of the time of night, the way that T20 international cricket works and the various tech hurdles we've had. This is being done in the early hours of the morning, but maybe they won't be sleeping. Maybe Heather Knight won't be sleeping in her room. I mean, we can talk about the game. We can go through all the match stuff, but let's start at the bit that matters. 5 balls to go, coming off for rain. What doing the sport of international cricket? What is going on? Now, we know that you come off for rain for a couple of reasons. You come off for rain because it's unfair to the bowling team because the ball gets wet, and you come off for rain because it's unfair to the team that has to bat later on the pitch because the pitch gets muddy and it can't be used. Can you not bowl 5 balls when they're the last 5 balls of the match to get
I'm going to interject. Normally speaking, 100%, I would be with you. I totally get that. Heather Knight, she is on your side, by the way, because she threw her bat down. She was livid. But Jeff, it was pissing it down. It was. I mean, the images are quite. It was raining pretty hard by that point. Yep. So I do think this is where the safety aspect comes into it, doesn't it? About the bowlers and their run-ups and the moving between the wickets. I get you, and perhaps maybe you could have just played for an extra 5 balls, but for consistency's sake more than anything, it was absolutely pelting it down. And it was also quite funny because the first time that England went off, when they were ahead of the DLS score, it was when White-Hodge and I think Dunkley were in. Yep. They sprinted off, absolutely careered off, and the Australians were like, what is this? This isn't any rain. I'm just going to wander off slowly and not even go to the dugout. Role reversal this time. It was quite funny. Heather Knight, she threw her bat down, refused to get off, was almost having to be carried across, whereas the Australians, they ran to the dugout. So, I mean, you can feel sorry for the English. You can argue that it should have been gone through to its completion. But it was probably from a consistency perspective. If we're going to have standards and we're going to enforce them, it was raining quite hard. Yeah. And I do feel sorry for England.
I'm going to put a contrary point of view about standards and about rules. Rules are there to achieve a purpose. That's what they're supposed to do.
I thought you were going to say rules are there to be broken.
Well, I mean, they are to a point. You can take the Martin Luther King approach that you have a moral duty to disobey an unjust law, which in this case, Heather Knight might be right in saying that it was. But if you have a rule in order to achieve something, and if that thing is not being achieved, then there is no moral duty to obey the rule. If you're standing at a pedestrian crossing on a completely empty street in the middle of the night with nobody around, it is technically against the rules to walk across it against the red light, but it is also completely meaningless to wait for a green light. There is nothing.
Is there not a safety aspect here?
I
Is there a
don't think.
safety
I mean,
aspect? I mean,
there's a safety aspect once the ground gets drenched, but when it has just started raining and it's
okay.
not drenched yet, the amount of time that you waste in having umpires talk about whether to go off and all the rest of it, you could probably have bowled 2 more balls in that time. You could at least have got
No, they
closer
weren't.
to
They
the
didn't
result.
discuss it. They just came off, and it had been raining, or at least drizzling, for the
Earlier.
majority of that second innings. So the ground was pretty wet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't want to be out there,
No.
and my shoes got wet,
I
and my
just
hair
think
got frizzy.
when you're
So
that close
you
to
know,
the end and you know that you won't get back on, you know at that time of night there won't be enough time to clean it up. They had a delay earlier. There won't be enough time to get back. You know you're calling the end of the match. Just at least get the next ball in and see what happens. You know, maybe a wicket falls or something, and then the batting team won't be quite so sore about coming off because they were less likely to win anyway. But you just like surely there's got to be more priority in trying to get a game done than in worrying about whether, well, we came off for this much rain earlier, so we have to make
but
sure
they
it's
did.
consistent.
They did.
To,
Especially after that first rain break, they were pretty rapid and making sure that they could get back on as soon as possible. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was still like drizzling when they came back on. I was quite impressed by both the umpires and the ground staff of trying to make as much of a game of it as possible. I mean, certainly there were times in the second innings when there was lightning and thunder, and I think there have been some protocols or some umpires that would have gone, right, we're off straight away. But they did persevere for quite a long time. It was almost as if it was like, well, we really did try, and now it is kind of torrential.
yeah.
I don't know.
I suppose.
I'm okay with
the
it.
frustration
I'm okay with that.
is there that they were that close. And the other part of this is that Australia had an extra fielder they weren't allowed to put out because they were behind the over rate. Australia, whisper it, were behind the over rate. Had they not been behind the over rate, they would have bowled the 20 overs and you would have had a conclusion one way or another. So, you know, Australia get away with not having to defend. And look, they're probably going to win anyway, right? They need to defend 18 off 5 balls. And Heather Knight's there and batting well, but Australia are probably going to defend, like scoring 18 off 5 on a wettish night when the outfield's wet and slow. Not easy, even if the ball's going to skid and so on. Even if Heather Knight's on 43 off 19 balls and looked terrific, she seemed to be liberated by the fact that they had that many to chase, 185 being what Australia made. So let's run through the game quickly now that we've got mad about rules and umpiring, which is like the favourite thing to do on this show. We don't need to wax lyrical about Beth Mooney again. We did that last time, 44 off 31 at the top of the order. It was kind of funny that there's a point where I think she'd faced 23 balls and Georgia Voll had faced 2 balls and almost got out.
It was glorious. There was amazing strike farming. Amazing strike farming in a manner that you'd almost think that only wicket keepers can do. We had Brad Haddon on comms, and he was marvelling at it. But also that was probably why Georgia Voll got out when she did, because she was seeing somebody else absolutely cruising at the other end, and went for and wanted to get in on the act, but couldn't. And then actually, ironically, got run out, which was also quite funny.
Yes. She did. Trying to come back for a third as well, which was enjoyable. Mooney stumped down the leg side, always sort of amusing when you see a keeper stumped. At least Perry had made that 60 when she looked at $1 million in the game when Australia got bowled out for 180 in the 50 over game. But aside from that, has barely made a run. And so they're, again, Australia keep wobbling to some extent. They're 4 down for 75. And
3 for 9. 3 for 9 they lost at one point.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
3 for 9, I think it was. Yeah, Mooney, Perry, Litchfield all going out in quick succession.
Yep. And so then it's Sutherland doing a bit of a repair job with Talia McGrath, and then it's McGrath and Harris who put on a show at the end, smacked 70 odd in about 30 something balls.
Saving grace.
Saving grace. Very good. But 5 minutes ago, Talia McGrath was out of nick, and we were saying, well, maybe she should be reshuffled out of this team so that they can get somebody else in there, get Georgia Voll in there for the ODIs. Well, suddenly in the last 3 innings, she's started smoking the ball and did so again tonight.
Captaincy,
35,
responsibility.
The power of her stroke making, when she gets it, when she nails that, she goes cut shot, she goes that sort of booming off drive, and she goes pull. And those 3 are just whack, whack, whack. And then Grace Harris, who barely gets a chance to bat in this side, finally gets a bit of a run at it, hits 3 sixes, carting them over the leg side, and then goes through the offside in the last over, then does the scoop as well, as if to show the players who keep making mistakes playing the scoop, that's how you do it. Dink 4, 35 off 17 for Grace, and they made 185, which is massive.
That trio of Annabelle Sutherland, Talia McGrath, and Grace Harris, they're all tall, they're all powerful women, and my God, do they hit a ball? Like it's both graceful but also destructive in the way that they do it. Whether it be clobbering you back over your head, or that sort of that the strength that they have in their torsos to hit it over mid wicket, regardless of where the fielders are. It's a pretty daunting prospect, and I think that's why it doesn't really matter if Australia go 2 down, 3 down, because you've got this kind of powerhouse in the middle. And I actually think this is probably the batting lineup and the approach that Australia missed in the T20 World Cup, where the likes of Talia McGrath or Phoebe Litchfield or Sutherland, frankly, just weren't facing enough balls. Whereas now everything's falling into place. They've got their right lineup.
Yeah, there was a point in that World Cup where Talia McGrath just couldn't sort of get off strike, was struggling along at about a run a ball and sort of finding ones, but just wasn't able to time anything. So they set England a big score, which sometimes does free up a team. Maya Burchia, we've talked about her struggling 13 off 14, but by the time she's out in the sixth over, they've got 46 on the board already because Danny Wyatt-Hodge comes out carving the place up. I'll wait till the Hall of Fame to come back to a previous visit of Danny Wyatt-Hodge to this particular ground, but 52 from 40. Dunkley has been a breath of fresh air for England, 32 off 22. And you're right, at the point that they go off for rain, which is a dozen overs in, they're ahead on DLS, not by much, but they've got the ascendancy there. Had it rained for the rest of the night, England would have actually got a win in this series.
It was actually a really funny period in those middle overs of the second innings, because every ball, you were tracking the DLS on every ball, and England would sort of go a little bit ahead, go a little bit behind. Literally, it was like a sort of a seesaw on every single delivery, which actually it really put off some of the bowlers, I reckon. Like Alana King was having to be rushed through her overs, and as a batter, in a way, it's easier because you have that clarity of mind. But you could see they were flustered out there. I'd be as well. It's quite hard to keep up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the captain McGrath was talking about that afterwards, of having to try to keep attention to it. But yeah, there's the point where Georgia Wareham gets whacked for a few boundaries in a couple of her overs as well. But a lot of it comes down to that 13th over where Wyatt and Dunkley, they're going along, they're doing their thing, they're not cruising by any means. They still needed 88 from the last 8 overs at that point. So they were 98 for 1. So they were going at about 8 and over. They needed 11 and over. So they were still behind the rate, even though they'd had some big overs. And then the 13th is the one that puts a hole in the boat, where Megan Shute comes back, as she often does, and it's the way that she follows a batter. So you've got Wyatt-Hodge, who always wants to go through the offside if at all possible, backing away to carve it, and Shute just getting the ball to keep tailing towards her, cramping her for room, so that when she tries to go off the offside, she can't, hits it up in the air. And then the one to Dunkley, it looked like a little roll of the fingers over the ball or something. There seemed to be something out of the hand there that just keeps it on a line, sneaks it past the bat, and dinks the top of off stump as it goes through. So both of them knocked over in the 13th, and then
Shute
suddenly,
is honestly,
you got an over's gone for 1 run and 2 wickets fall.
The most skillful bowler in T20 world cricket. I mean, I think she's now 2 away from getting 150 in the format, which she'd be the first bowler to do so. And she's an elder stateswoman of this format now, but she knows exactly what she's doing and how to execute those skills. And it was just a remarkable over. 1 run off it, 2 wickets. And I actually think in both innings, it was sort of, there were 2 overs that changed the whole course of the match. In Australia's batting innings, it was the 18th and 19th over, where they scored, I think, 17 and 18 respectively off those 2 overs. But in the England innings, it was
my word.
That,
it was horrible. What was going on? How many catches did England put down tonight? But she had drops, she had misfields. I mean, there were 4 boundaries in that over. I think 2 of them were misfields, and there was a drop catch in there as well.
Yeah.
There were some of the simplest sort of long on
been hit for that
catches
many
that you can take.
It was. I think about 4 balls in that over where something went calamitously wrong, whether it be a misfield, whether it be a drop catch. It was just. I mean, it was almost laughable. So those are the 2 overs in that Australia innings, the 18th and the 19th over, that just absolutely calamitous. 35 runs off them. Yuck. And then in reverse, in the England batting innings, it was the 13th and the 14th over. The 13th one being that Megan Sutton over where she 1 run, 2 wickets. And then the next one was only 3 runs off it. So you've got suddenly 2 overs, 2 wickets, 4 runs. Like, you're absolutely cooked. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you bat, you bat from there on in. The games, you're chasing the game. And I think that's it, is that just at those crucial periods when you're either going to accelerate or collapse, the two teams went different ways.
And as you know, as well as Heather Knight batted tonight, Nat Sciver-Brunt couldn't get it going. She was 22 off 20 balls. Now, if she's 32 off 20 balls, then England are in with a genuine chance sort of coming into that last over, and it's a kind of rate that you'd expect her to score at, but she just wasn't able to get it going, and in the end she's just turning over the strike really and hoping that Heather Knight can find a way to do it, which Knight does for a fair bit. There's that point where Shute comes back and Heather Knight smacks her for a couple of boundaries. She's going down the ground, and Sciver-Brunt did find one in that. Her
inside out shots, Heather Knight, were absolutely glorious. And I mean, it was one of those moments where you had to just take yourself away from the situation and this horrid, beleaguered Ashes tour that poor old Knight is having to skip her. But the way in which she plays the inside out shots, she moves into position well, and she can really. Mooney played similarly as well, actually. So they know exactly where the field is and exactly where they can score those runs. And she executed it beautifully. Sciver-Brunt, she was hitting the ball really well, but she was picking out the fielders every single time. It was Heather Knight. She was playing a different game, and I thought that was probably the best of the innings, and understandably why she was so angry at the end.
Yeah, something we've seen a lot from Knight playing for Sydney Thunder when she was, those seasons in New South Wales. She was so good at going inside out over cover. That was just her pet shot in the T20 form. But she manages to smack that 6 as well that goes away off McGrath, wasn't it? The Perry palms over the rope, and then gets another one over short fine sort of late in the 19th over, and then Sciver-Brunt's bowled off the inside edge, which I think you were calculating wouldn't have changed the DLS target, I think, I guess because they were so close to the finish line that losing a wicket there with so many left in hand didn't actually make a difference to the equation at that point.
Yeah, precisely. We had this ridiculous table that showed you all the DLF's past scores and the number of wickets falling at literally every single ball. And it's quite interesting because when they first went off for rain in that sort of 11th, 12th over, a wicket made a massive difference to what the DLS past score was going to be. So it was almost a case of just play reasonably conservatively because you just don't want to get out. But once you get to the 18th, 19th, 20th, because there's so few balls and you've only four or five down, it doesn't actually make that much difference at all to the DLS past score, to the point that even if you lost a couple of wickets, the DLS pass score would stay the same. And that's where they were at that stage. So actually the Sciver-Brunt wicket wasn't a massive impact other than that she was in the informed batter.
Yeah, I suppose if you've got 7 wickets in hand and 6 balls to go, then it'll change with each dot ball, but it doesn't matter if that dot ball's a wicket or not, effectively. Like the important thing is whether a run is scored from it. And I suppose a team that's 8 down that needs 4 off the last ball is probably not much less likely to get it than a team that's 4 down. Somebody still has to hit a boundary. Anyway, they end up 18 short when the rain comes down. England pissed off. Australia win by 6 runs on the DLS. So had England, had 6 more at that point, I suppose they would have tied it. Anyway, the whitewash is still on. The luck didn't go with England tonight, but they weren't close enough to hang on. We should have a quick break and then we'll do the Hall of Fame. It's the final word. Women's Ashes Daily, the Hall of Fame, brought to you by Cbus Super, cbussuper.com.au. If you want to sort your super out, you should. Why not? Sort out your retirement. Izzy Westbury today. I had so many thoughts about 2017 today. I thought here we are, Canberra, Danny Wyatt Hodge opening the batting, big run chase. The last match of the series when the T20s came last in 2017, they needed 179, England, and they came out and they got them because Danny made 100 even off about 50 balls. And I think got dropped maybe 5, maybe 6 times along the way. It was one of those sort of charmed innings where she played some amazing shots and also just kept getting the luck going her way. And when she was put down today on 49 and it allowed a run and she could get through for the half century, I was just thinking, here we go again. There's something there. One night Danny Wyatt Hodge must have been walking around Canberra and must have come across 3 witches standing around a cauldron boiling some sort of brew. She must have made some sort of deal with them. She must have made a deal, but it wasn't to be because it didn't happen tonight, and she didn't cruise to 100 tonight and take England to the win.
I tell you, though, the 3 batters that have ridiculous records at Monaco Oval, Danny Wyatt Hodge, Beth Mooney and Heather Knight, all played pretty bloody well once again. Yep. So hats off to them. It was a good show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a Canberra thing, maybe. That's where Canberra's where Mooney took that ridiculous catch in the Test match when she had a broken jaw and her face was wired together and she was diving forward at long on and all the rest of it. Did anything strike you as Hall of Fame worthy tonight? Anything tickle you?
I reckon Grace Harris narrating her own boshing is absolutely glorious. I mean, first of all, I don't have to do any work because you could just turn the stump mic on and listen to her running ball by ball commentary, and it is a, I want to say a sight to behold, but a sound to behold,
an audio sight to behold.
Absolutely, it's great fun listening to her, and she's, part of it is her encouraging herself, part of it is her communicating with both, I guess, the listening public and her partner. Yep. But it's good entertainment, especially when she's on one. So yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay, very good. The broadcasters are always happy when Grace finally gets a game because they're guaranteed she will be the one on player mic. There is no,
of course,
no doubt about it. There is no other option to go to. All right, it is late and you must sleep and then go and do something else. You've got another T20 to get to in about 5 minutes.
We'll get to Adelaide,
which will be in Adelaide.
It's impossible to get to Adelaide.
It is
impossible to get to Adelaide because apparently everybody in Sydney goes to Adelaide for Australia Day weekend. So trying to get there is an absolute nightmare. Plus they've got the tour, the cycling tour down under, which is going through Adelaide. I mean, these are all wonderful things and great reasons to be in Adelaide, but it means it makes it much harder for me. I'm just going to put it out there. Please give me some, I don't know, you feel sorry for me for some ridiculous reason.
Call Bharat. He will drive from Adelaide and pick you up. He loves driving
That's true.
from Adelaide to Sydney. He does it all the time. Canberra, that's easy. That's not even as far as Sydney. He'll take you through Broken Hill. He'll take you through the hometown of Albert Jacka, and he will make you realise what it's like to be an Australian. All right, we will see you on Saturday for the third T20. This has been the Final Word Women's Ashes Daily. Patreon.com/thefinalword if you want to get on board with our campaign to catch Murali. We're going to get to 800. We started a campaign and people are responding. They're signing up in droves, so be one of them. Izzy, thank you. Seabus and Morris Blackburn,
a pleasure.
Thank them as well. And good night. We'll see you soon.